We have about, I'm gonna make this very short. There's about 15 slides here. My name is Ty Denson. I used to work here. I was hot and heavy with Sherry for a while. Not at this Neil's, but at the old Neil's. I used to work, we used to work together. Yeah, we all worked together. So, I'm a firefighter now. I've been on the fire department about 29 years. I have two hats in the city. I'm the deputy chief for the city. I'm the deputy chief for the Springfield Fire Department, and I'm the emergency management director for the city as well. Excuse me one second. Matt, I got you on speaker. Do not embarrass me. I got you on speaker in front of a whole bunch of pretty ladies here. So that chip, where do I put that chip at? Inside this laptop for the clicker. That's a new one.
The USB port.
Just shove it in there?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew I was gonna look dumb. I knew it.
So is it the adapter?
Yeah.
It might take a minute to recognize the pointer, but.
You know what? Matt, you're right. You are right, Matt. Hold on. Get the pointer, yep. Yep, you're right, Matt. Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
I knew I could depend on you. All the ladies said thank you. Okay, all right, buddy. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I wear two hats almost, I wear two hats, emergency management director for the city as well. So my job on the fire side is just to update emergency plans around the city with daycares. Now, I acquired daycares in the city. I have to do every daycare in the city, which is over 250 daycares in the city. That's new this year. It's a new regulation that they've been calling me like crazy for it. So I do that. I give exercises and trainings to any type of facility, medical, any type of agency. I've done Mass Mutual, Smith & Wesson, like active shooters, suspicious packages. I can do all those exercises. I have a team that we come out and we'll do these exercises. Every year we do functional exercises for real at schools, like active shooters at schools. We get all the agencies together. We do a real functional exercise at one of the elementary schools or high schools in the city every year in the summer. So this is my wheelhouse right here, just doing these exercises. And my other role in the city is I coordinate all the resources. If something major would have happened like we had at 2011, my role would be to coordinate all the resources together and try to find out how we can alleviate that problem. How can we attack this? How can we respond to this problem? I'm not the chief, not the incident commander, but I get everybody at the table like this. I run an emergency operations center over at 1212 Carew Street. It's similar to this, but on a large scale, and has everybody in the city. It has placards at every chair, like utilities, Eversource, Comcast, PVTA, PD, AMR. It has everybody around the table, and my job is to coordinate all of them. So on my phone, which if I lose, I will cry because I have everybody in the city on here, including the mayor. I can make a phone call and everybody can come to one table in one call, or email. I can send out through eBridge or through email. So that's my job. My job is just to coordinate resources. So when I show up to scenes, basically I'm there like, what do you need? Do you need a dump truck? Do you need a PVTA bus? Do you need this? I can make that happen. That's my relationships I've been building in the city. Even with Big Y, when we had a big water break, a couple years ago, I started receiving phone calls left and right about this water break. Long story short, I called Big Y. I said, can you get us some cases of water? We need a truckload of cases of water. So they brought like 18 pallets of water over to the fire department. We gave them out to the city. So that's me. I'm the resource guy when it comes to that. Today, we're just gonna run through an exercise. This exercise is not to stump anybody. It's just to kind of put you on awareness of your role and responsibility that something may happen in this area. Like I said, we can go into different scenarios. Like I said, I can do active shooter, I can do suspicious packages as well, but today we're gonna just do a hazardous materials spill. If something like this were to happen outside of Neil's here, we got 291, we have 91 is here, 91 as well. So things like this can happen. It's rare, but it does happen once in a while. Things like this happen, we have a hazmat team that comes out of Chicopee, and they gather together maybe 5 to 7 members. They come together with a truck. They can kind of alleviate this whole problem. But we attack these problems like, a certain way. We always try to mitigate this in a certain way, but we'll walk through that. But like I said, it's just testing your emergency plans. That's all we're trying to do today. Like I said, it's not to stump anybody, but we'll just walk through it. 15 slides, painless. It'll be painless for you, all right? So if y'all ready, any questions? I'm sorry, any questions for me regarding what I do or my many hats? Everybody's good? Okay, all right. So I'm just I'll read off this, accept the artificialities of the scenario. Obviously they're made up. Fight the problem, not the scenario. Remember, you're just testing the plan, not the people. There's no right or wrong answers. There's gonna be times in this exercise that you'll be able to have discussion amongst each other. I usually give about 5 minutes just to discuss certain things. Consider your plan, your facility, your capabilities. Like I said, there'll be time for group problem solving. Even this tabletop is just discussion based. That's what it basically is. So you can make notes on your response. So we'll just walk through a typical day. Let's just, any other normal day. Day one, it's a Thursday in July, 2 o'clock. Weather's sunny, 84, similar almost like today, almost a little bit. Normal to high patient volume, it's like a normal day. Staff is totally complete. We have full staff here today, right? All of a sudden, a patient's family member comes into the lobby and reports that there has been a big truck accident on the highway behind the center, or next to the center, and the staff starts to hear the sirens of the responding resources. Outside, a staff member observes the heavy smell of diesel fuel in the air. An employee in the break room reports breaking news on WWOP that a propane tanker has crashed on I-91 North, and that the traffic in both directions and on I-291 has been stopped. So that's the scenario right now. These may be wrong. This is an old slide, so don't pay attention to that. I know you guys are 50. So that was just an old slide. But somebody comes in, reports this accident, and we keep going. Let's see. So in this scenario, a Prius cuts off a $3,000 gallon propane delivery truck. Okay, right? We couldn't get a Prius, so we got some other trucks. But something like that happens. The truck swerves to miss the Prius, hits SUV, pickup, and rolls over the driver's side. The truck driver is rendered unconscious. The SUV and pickup occupants escape, minor injuries, and run away from the incident. There's no fire or explosion, but the truck is still running. The truck is full of product, and the diesel tanks are full. Diesel fuel is leaking from the driver's side tank. All right, so you got the report. Somebody came in and said this, and this is what you find out, either from the news or from the report. So, based on that information, you get 5 minutes just to discuss how you respond to that. Somebody came in and told you this at the front desk. What are you thinking right now? Just who receives that information? Who needs to know that this has happened outside?
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
And Lisa and Sharon.
And Mike to show off HVAC.
So based on information you received, Sherry, what would be your thought process from here? Just hearing that.
What risk are we at for with this being close? How is it going to impact us?
So would you notify? Is it at the level where you notify all staff yet, or just emergency?
No,
staff
we would
personnel?
probably contact basic security, see if they've had any information, and then also contact the local police department.
Okay. Good enough? So usually when we have something like this, I know you guys are somewhere up in that area. Usually a spill like this, immediately before we even really know what's happening, we always try to evacuate, or just our thought process is a half mile from wherever that spill is, or wherever the agencies, or wherever the facility that might be affected. To just think about right off the back, within a half mile radius, we might have to evacuate if this goes south. That's what we think of right off the base. We know that this is a spill, so right away, half mile with spills, we usually do a half mile radius of evacuation. We kind of think about that. I wouldn't start it, but in my mind, if I heard this, I'm thinking that coming to the scene, we might have to evacuate within a half mile of wherever that spill is at. So now a Springfield police officer arrives at the clinic advises that your facility and occupants are in immediate danger and must evacuate to a distance of a half mile. A reverse 911 voice message is received advising immediate evacuation. We do that through the city, through our IT department. They can shoot it out to all the residents, reverse 911, and let them know that this has happened, and within this area, we have to evacuate. So now discuss how you respond based on the above injects. What would you do from here? The police officer came and advised your facility that you have to evacuate. Obviously, if that's the case, this is because the odors, the smell, or something like that, or it could be some type of explosion that might happen. Like, we're thinking down the road, that we're thinking safety. So we don't want anybody in the area. If this thing catches on fire, it makes a bigger problem, obviously. So that's what we're looking at right now. So right here it says, I know it says large spill. That's where we're at right now. Half mile. That's what we're thinking, a half mile right now, large spill. If it got worse, then we gotta think about a mile in all directions. But right now, we're thinking half mile is a large spill. And this is more for the fumes and things like that. That's kind of getting out. So, thinking long term, like I said, we're thinking the worst case scenario. So the police officer comes in now, what do we do now?
So as leadership, all the leaders, charge nurses, myself, Jamie, Lisa, Karen, we would all meet together to discuss our plan. The plan would be to discharge any patients that we were safe to be discharged. We would keep track of that. We would collect, just like we would in a fire, a staff listing, a patient roster, what vendors are in the building, what visitors are in the building, anybody that we can just immediately discharge, chart, evacuate. We would keep them on a list. Any patients that were currently in the OR, would we have the option to defend in place, or do we have to immediately consider transferring them? That would be my question. So if we could stay and work on transporting, because Bay State in this picture is out of the zone,
Yep.
we would start to move any patients over to the hospital that we could, and if we were in the middle of a case, again, shut down all of our air handler systems, block out the doors, finish what we had to, and then consider transferring them.
Yep. So obviously you're calling maintenance, obviously they're coming into the picture here, obviously the HVAC systems shut that down. You're thinking about transporting patients, obviously, if you have to get them out of here. Like you say, calling the ambulance, either Bay State, EMS still, or have to call AMR or one of the other, EMS agencies.
Tyron, how difficult is that in a situation like this where there's a lot of medical buildings in the area and people having to transport at the same time? Actually getting a bus to get our patients out of here that need to be transported.
That they need to be transported, like I can get if it's AMR, or that's who we have contracted.
Yeah,
with
that's
the
who
city.
we're contracted
So,
with.
yeah, contract with AMR, I would call their operations manager, and she would obviously probably put the message
Yeah.
out to the outlying companies.
Gotcha.
They come over here immediately. If it's just your staff that needed to be evacuated, I can get a PVTA bus here in 20 minutes. If I make a phone call, they'll have it here. So like I said, I'm the resource guy,
Yep.
that's it. I'll get that, whatever you
Yeah.
need throughout the city, if it's water, I have contacts with all of these agencies, so I can make that phone call happen. So, and that's what I'm here for, basically to see what we can do in these exercises or in these scenarios or something were to happen. What can we do from the city to help? And that's what I'm here for. What can we do? So that's why Sherry has my number in any emergency. Just call me anyway. If you're not sure what to do, call me. Most
And we would
likely
just
I
call
can get
your
that
direct
answer.
line, or should we call the Springfield Fire Department? What would be the?
You can call me, since I know you, obviously,
Okay.
we used to date, so.
Yeah.
You can call me directly. You can do it seriously. You can call me either way. It doesn't matter, because.
You got that, we're all getting
Yeah,
this
yeah,
phone
yeah.
number.
Right.
There's a problem, we're calling Ty.
Got it on video, so.
No, you can call me, because eventually they're gonna call me anyway.
Mhm.
When these things happen, they'll call me, hey, Ty,
Yeah.
by the way, this happened, there's a hazmat spill, or, I respond to so many different calls. But when it comes to hazmat, they call me, because I gotta notify, the Department of Transportation, depends on where it's at, and, I gotta notify DEP, Environmental Protection, I gotta notify a lot of people, so. But
So
yeah,
what would the priority of our patients be though versus 100 Lawson? You
Yeah.
have
dialysis over there and stuff too,
Over there?
don't you? Don't you have
They have a
like,
surgery center.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got different acuity.
Yeah,
over there.
absolutely, and I've done some of these exercises with dialysis centers too.
Yeah.
As well, and we just always tell them, just like you guys, just to have like a brother or sister like agency that you could obviously transfer to, that you're acquainted with, that you can get patients over there, in time, or in a reasonable time. And like I said, from our side, like, do you need buses? We had an AMBU bus. We had one that transferred 12. That could transfer like 12 patients on non-ambulatory patients. We could transfer them, but now that bus is down. We're trying to acquire another one just in case. Something major would happen. We never used the bus. It was a PVTA bus converted, basically, and it had all kinds of beds and everything inside there to get patients in there and get them to wherever they needed to go to transfer to the hospital. So we're in the process of trying to get that up and running again, trying to get a new one. The thing was old. It was like over 30 years old or something like that, so we needed to update it.
And when you do a recommended evacuation, like for that half-mile radius, is there a time frame that you usually want people evacuated by? Like, do we have a half hour to get patients discharged, or is this, an imminent danger and we need to, like, obviously everything's being expedited, but there must be some time frame.
If this was on fire, I think it would be imminent. But right now this is just a leak.
Yeah,
So it's more of a fumes thing.
okay.
But we're thinking down the road if some spark or somebody,
Yeah.
something comes by and it starts the fire, now we're thinking, we gotta move,
Okay.
So, I mean, in cases like this, besides the resident alert system here that we have through the city,
Mhm.
I usually have in my truck, I have like a printer and a printout in the back. I lift up the tailgate. I got a printer that I can print out a certain area in a radius that I give to the cops. And I tell them, hey, I need this, from this street to this street, I need evacuated. I could do that as well. So, and also, I mean, even besides this, if I wanted a certain area, I can target a certain area. This will go out to everybody for the most part for the city. But I can call MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, because they're my big brother, basically, big brother, big sister. I could call them to target just like a half-mile radius or a mile radius just within this building. I can target that, to say, I just needed to go out to this many people within this area, that's it. Not the whole city needs to know, the South End don't need to know this or whatever, it's just this area. So, I mean, we have a lot of resources and capabilities that we could, make sure we notify everybody. Worst case scenario, we have the cops go door to door. That's another thing. They'll knock on the doors, go door to door if we had to, so.
Hi, I just had a question. So
Mhm.
if this was just a spill and we're not trying to evacuate the building, we're trying to evacuate the area. So if we don't have a place to go yet, better to stay in the building than standing outside, like
Yeah.
there's a fire in the building, you know what I mean? We would normally evacuate outside to next door,
Mhm.
but we don't wanna do that. We'd rather stay in unless we had a place to go already.
That's part of your plans, and this is why that's why I'm here, because this is where you build those plans, like where will we go? What
Yeah,
building?
There's no
where-
place to go. I'd rather
Yeah.
be inside than outside,
Yeah.
just standing on the corner waiting for, I don't know what.
Waiting for the
This is-
bus.
Yeah, exactly. But like even so, like if Sherry called me and said, hey, we have nowhere to go, Ty, is there a place that we can go? I'll call a PVTA bus or, just a public school bus, whatever, and I'll get you guys to Mass Mutual Center. It's as simple as that. I could do that. But that's where these emergency plans come in. If this were to happen, is there a sister or brother like place that we could go? Is there a gym? Is there a community room that we could locate to, relocate? And that's where these plans come into place. Like I said, try to develop something that you can, like with one of the area hospitals or clinics maybe.
Right, so we're partnering with Bay State, we have a contract with them,
Exactly.
so.
So most likely you'll be with Bay State, you'll go over
Yeah.
there somewhere in the, whatever, wherever they have an open area there.
Yeah.
But worst case, you call me anytime, we have nothing.
Yeah.
And I've been in those situations where people call and say, we have nothing. Maybe a library, I'll call somebody to open up a library, I'll call the health department, can you get one of the libraries open? So we can ship 75 people down there, So worst case scenario, we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen, but we want you to have this in your plans.
Yeah, so our patients go to the hospital,
Yeah.
And we go home.
and, well.
And then we go.
MGM.
Yeah.
We go to MGM.
Yeah, or MGM, I'm sure that busted before. Going
Yeah.
Yeah. But the whole thing is just keeping accountability of your patients and the staff. Obviously, where are you guys going? Who's keeping accountability of all of that?
So, just so everybody knows, we did move this book. It is with the policies in the business office. This is something, one of us will have on our hands, but if we do need to delegate, there is, in here an evacuation log. There is also our transfer policy with the phone numbers for Bay State, all of our transfer forms for each patient. You know, obviously, we probably wouldn't be having time to print out all of the patient records, but if we can get a synopsis on the patients that we are transferring over, there would be one responsible person to call all of these reports over to the main campus, let them know they're on their way. Family members that are here, I do have directions to get over to the main campus as well if that was a safe place to go. So this book will have all of those things. Your leaders will delegate to you what will happen next. So the most important thing would be to stay in the building, don't just leave, and then we'll direct you as to who needs to be transferred. In the meantime, like I said, wrapping things up, we'd be communicating with the doctors in the OR to finish the cases if they could. If they were cases that needed to continue or close, do we have that time? And then again, getting anybody that we could not discharge in a safe period of time out of here.
Do we have any other connections to any other place other than Bay State?
I was just gonna say.
So, I mean, our contract is with Bay State, but again, in a situation like this where we would reach out, maybe it's Mercy, maybe it's Holyoke. It would depend upon the acuity of our patients and what else is happening in the area, right? If Bay State's on diversion, because everybody is sending there, we may have to go to another facility.
Or if they were in the same.
Yep, or if they were in the same range,
area.
yep.
And it would just be like the emergency room, or like what do you?
That would be up to Bay State to determine where they were gonna take the influx of these patients, and that's why they do their disaster training. Sometimes they would set up, the conference rooms, those two huge conference rooms in Chestnut, they've set those up before for disaster plans. That's what they train to do for trauma responses like this, so.
Yeah, and like I said, if something major like a MCI or like a major event happened, a plane came down or something like that, obviously Bay State's a trauma one center. If we could use Bay State, we go to Hartford, they're trauma too. So we would, so we have those contracts and those relationships built into our statewide plans as well, so just keep moving. So that was a spill, right? So if this thing happened to catch on fire, it could turn into a bloody. That word coming up in the fire department, I hated that word. I never wanted to see this. That's where that tanker that you saw that spilled caught fire and it blows up. If that thing, now everybody has a propane tank in their grill, the little 20-pound ones. Those, if that little tank could take out like an apartment block if it blew. Yeah, it could take out like a 3 or 4 story apartment block. It could take it out if that thing blows. So when we go to fires, garages, we hear that there's propane tanks and everything in there, we rush to get them out of there, or we put water on them immediately just to cool it down, because that we don't want to see. So imagine the one that you saw in that picture, something that size blowing. So what a bloody is, a boiling liquid expansion, whatever, I forget how it was. I mean, we learned it in the academy. Vapor explosion. So basically what it is obviously this is the tanker, it starts heating up, it catches fire, it starts boiling, and it pressurizes. The pressure starts going until this thing explodes. So we have 2 things to do with that. When we pull up on scene, I dealt with one of these in my life over on Gasoline Alley. And what we do is we put water on it immediately to cool it down so it doesn't blow. And we pray that it's, it's not at the point where it's about to blow, but we put water on it, but we don't stand like with a hose and do this, obviously. We put unmanned fire hoses in the street and we stand as far back as we can and we just let it spray water on top of this. We just cool it down. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to let this boil out. Just let it boil out. Just let it boil out. It's going to be pressurized, so you're going to hear the hissing coming from the pipe. And sometimes it's best to let the liquid just boil out and just keep it cool and let all of the energy just get away. Just let it boil away. So that is an extreme case. If that blew, anything within, I would say, probably within this center, probably at least a half mile in all the radius is gonna be leveled. It'll be gone. If that thing, and now you gotta think about shrapnel. This is made of metal, all the pieces, you know, that blow up with it. So that's what a Blevy does. So this is the tank like this. This is what happens, and this is what we're trained on. You can see there's a fire hose right there. We can't put out the gas, it's just gonna keep, but we try to keep the tank cool. We will usually put water on top of this, just trying to keep it cool so it doesn't blow. But yeah, once it catches fire, now that's a whole nother problem, you know? But that's how we attack that. If we can't shut off the gas line somehow, to stop feeding it, if this is just a regular one that's on a facility, we try to shut off the gas somewhere. If we can get close enough to do it, if it's too dangerous, we'll just put water on it. Put water in it and just let it go, just let it burn out. That's how we attack things like this. But if that were to go, boom, that's what happens. That thing will blow up, shrapnel everywhere. I don't know if you've seen, on TV in certain areas, or I don't know, overseas or wherever, where some of these things blew, or at some of the factories or facilities, those things level everything. So that's what we're trying to prevent, honestly. That's what we want to prevent. But that's what we're thinking. When we get a call for a hazmat spill, trust me, my mind goes to this right away. It goes right to that about, let's get water out of it, let's stop the leak, because we don't want none of that, So now the incident commander decides to enforce the DOT evacuation requirement for 1 mile. So now it caught fire. This thing caught fire. So now we expanded to 1 mile in all directions. Is your facility evacuation plan? What's the evacuation plan? The one you just discussed? So now you gotta go 1 mile out. So now Bay State is within that mile. So where would you go from there?
Mercy's within that mile too then. It's pretty close.
You might be good. You might be good. You might be good with Mercy.
Sherry, I'm going home.
I know,
Propofol for all.
Yeah. But who knows? Cooling it, whatever.
You have polio.
Polio. It could be Holyoke Hospital. It could be something.
But again, that's where we wouldn't be making I wouldn't be calling and saying like, okay, we're gonna transfer everybody to Holyoke.
Yeah.
Holyoke, guess what, you're incoming. We would be in communication with you, with the fire department, with the police department to determine where we could go from there,
Yeah.
so.
And like I said, I know the Mercy managers are it, but
No, I was just gonna say, just ballpark, like a diesel tanker. How long would it take that to be on fire before it explodes? I mean, are you
It takes a
talking
while,
minutes
yeah.
or like an hour or?
it could be hours. It could be hours. There's no really time frame, so we just treat it as obviously immediate, just to try to get water on it. Our thing is we don't know when it starts. Like a lot of times we don't know when it's. In this case, we knew when it started on fire. We kind of seen it progress. It went from a leak to a fire. Okay, now we have time. It's got to boil out. Like I said, like the previous pictures, it's got to boil out. It's got to boil all of that. So like when it turned over, boom, it was probably like that. It was full. It leaked out. Some of it leaked out, this and that. So now it's on its side. We know it's a full tank in there, so it's going to take a while for it to pressurize and blow. So it could be, but there's no time frame. That's the thing. There's no.
I didn't know if it was like in 10 minutes,
No,
you have to get
nothing
out
that
or
fast,
something, or.
But we're assuming that probably within an hour or two, whatever, we're just assuming that. We probably got an hour. We'll probably go on the worst case scenario. We got an hour to get everybody, it might be 2 or 3 hours, who knows, but just to be safe, just to get everybody out of there, But like I said, having those plans just in place. Like I said, and I know the emergency managers from other hospitals, we get together. I have a local emergency planning committee where I get like the Bay State emergency manager with me. So obviously I'll be in touch with that person immediately, obviously. And in other area hospitals too, with Mercy, I know the emergency manager over there. So these are the things that we discuss, we talk about, and that's how I build the relationships with everybody. Just in case something like this happens, they can call me, hey Ty, this is what's going on. All right, okay. So We know who the EMS provider will be, basically, you know. But like you said, you probably just gotta go a little further out now. You know, we thought we were safe here, now we gotta go here instead of here, you know, so.
And what would Bay State do, if they were in this zone? How would, cause that obviously impacts,
Right, like if you have to
Yeah.
evacuate all of Bay State,
Yeah,
that'd be wild.
yeah, that's on our scale. This is what I call big brother, big sister, I call MEMA.
Yeah.
You know, and they start making
Okay.
phone calls and they start, you know, when it gets out of
Yeah.
the scope of our local resources,
Yeah.
when we can't handle it, when it's like, okay, wow, we're in some trouble here. I call them,
Okay.
they start calling everybody, and whatever we
Yeah.
need to get, they'll make those phone
Okay.
calls. All right, we're transporting 80 patients up here, you know,
Yeah.
you know.
okay, and we do have MEMA's contact information in this binder as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I work closely with them all the time, you know, so. But just something to think about, something to scare you. That's all. So this is what we do. You know, so as your facility's been evacuated, staff, patients, visitors, Incident Command has decided on a strategy using a controlled burn. This is a controlled burn. What I said, we put water on top of the tanker and we just let it burn out. This is what they train us in the fire academy to do. You know, we get as close as we kind of can to it, just try to cool this tank so it doesn't explode. So if we keep it cool and just let it burn, eventually all of it'll burn out and then it's no threat anymore. So that's our first line of defense. If we can't get close enough to shut this off somehow, like this is on the highway, obviously it's something a little different. This is at a facility, a fixed pipe facility, but they teach us this at a facility. We come in close as we can, we try to shut it off wherever we can shut it off if it's safe. One person holds this nozzle and sprays that water, and another firefighter goes in to shut off the lever. So that's how we fight these in training. You know, in real life, it'll be totally different, honestly. In real life, we just try to cool the tank. That's it. We just try to keep it cool. That's all. But look, this will take approximately 16 hours. So imagine that took 16 hours out there, that whole tanker thing, you know, and you had to transport patients, your staff, you know, everything a mile away, you know, and they told you, the incident commander said, hey, it's gonna be about 16 hours before we get this under control. You know, just think about who's gonna contact the patients, you know, the families that's coming in. You know, they're on their way in, they might not have known about this, you know, this bill, you know. So just things to think about, that's all. You know, who's that person? Who's that contact person? So here you go, like I was saying. How would you account for all staff, patients, and visitors during the evacuation? Who's gonna do that? And at the final evacuation destination, where is that, you know? We talked about that. The cell phones are jammed in the median area, overwhelmed, the towers are jammed. How do you notify staff and patients not to come for appointments later in the day or short term future? What is your plan to reunify staff and patients after you arrive safely at the shelter? Because you know, once you hear this, or people hear this, they're gonna be flying in. That's the problem that people don't really see. That's where the problem starts. People hear it, they start coming in, they wanna know, wherever you reunify at, they're gonna show up there. How are you gonna set that up, like to reunify, you know, patients and your loved ones? That's where the jam comes in. You know, that's where you have to have people appropriated in different areas and different, you know, just to control that traffic, you know. It's a nightmare, like, you know, like I said, when you think about the whole reunification, it's just a nightmare, that's a nightmare. You know, think of yourself, or if it was your kids or anybody, you know, at a school, we do this with schools, and, you know, parents are coming. You know, there's no way you stopping me from getting to my child, you know, so, same thing here, you know, at the hospital, people are coming, you know. So, you know, just think about that. You know, who would notify the, you know, the patients about where the staff at that, not to come? You know, do you have a robocall system, or do you just?
We would be calling.
Yeah, just make it a
We
phone
have
call.
we have a chain.
Yeah. So long as it's in your plans, you know, things like this happen, you know, or something to think or add to the plan, you know, either way. You know. So, that's pretty much it. It's just something, you know, what did you learn, you know, from this today, you know? Maybe different roles, different responsibilities, maybe you have to assign somebody to this or that, you know, pray it never happens, but at least have something in place. Your evacuation plan, you have one, that's good. Like you said, developing those relationships with other, you know, the hospitals and things like that, or other emergency managers, just talking to them, hey, you know, if something were to happen, you know, can we partner with you? You know, looking at the plan, is there something that we should probably remove from the plan that's maybe that's not existent anymore, or maybe something we can add to the plan that we need to do nowadays in today's world. Things have changed. We can't do it that old way anymore. Now we gotta do it this way, a different way. Just things like that, Do y'all still use the AAA HC standards?
Yes.
You do that, so, does it meet the standards, the evacuation? And like you said, what are the next steps? We just think about it, now what? We call that the now what. Now you went through the scenario, now what? Where do we go from here? Do we sit down at the table and discuss more about this, or are we good? The plans are good, how they look right now, But at least you know what I do. If anything, call me, I can find the answer or get some resources, that you may need, Because I've helped evacuate buildings, but like I said, buses, water, whatever you needed, I was able to get things done through my contacts. If you're stuck, or even with other hospitals, I could probably make phone calls and talk to their managers and let them know what's going on as well.
We put Todd's contact info.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a business card too. Everybody want a business card? Yeah, like I said, just, building those relationships is good. But talking about it, usually communication is the main thing that breaks down, obviously. Wait till we do active shooter. I'm scared to bring my guy here for active shooter. You guys will not come back to work. Because he's so real. He's real. He's very real and he's honest, but you gotta think about those things. The suspicious packages too. We have to train the cops, because the cops like to run in and grab things. Oh, this ain't nothing but a duffel bag, and they running. And I'm like, what are you doing? Don't touch anything. There's videos of cops doing that and blowing up. But we do all kinds of trainings, And in today's world, obviously, you guys see it out there. You need that training. You need to know what the plan is. Like for instance, I want to I'll just tell you a quick story. Like I do daycare centers. So obviously kids can't stay quiet. If an active shooter comes in, how you keep your kids quiet? So somebody had told me, said, hey Ty, I went to a place where they would say a word to the kids. They got like 20 kids in the class, they would say the word purple. And purple meant that they would have to go in the corner and just be quiet as they can be. He said, give them a code word that they could sit back and just be quiet in the corner or something like that. He said, and teach them that. Practice that. So when you say that code word, they know just to go over there and just really be quiet. Because if you never train with them and do that, they will never be quiet. Obviously, kids are gonna be loud. But just little things like that. And just communicating. Like I said, somebody come to the desk with a gun or something. How are you gonna notify everybody here that is active shooter that just walked in here? Is there a button that you push? Is there a walkie-talkie that you call everybody on? Do you go overhead and say, hey, there's active shooter? Or you code green. Code green. I work in the hospital. I know the codes and all that. How do you notify everybody? Is there a red light or something that goes off in rooms? This is, in a perfect world, we know it could be, you could do things on that level, but you just gotta think about little things like that. How we notify everybody? That's the key. How are you gonna notify everybody? Without startling everybody at the same time. But that's another joke. That's another joke. But no, I just wanted to run that by you guys. Just something quick and easy, just something to think about, nothing major. We can go deep as you want with this, or longer. We can go deeper than that. That was just a surface. Something happened. We got to get everybody out of here. How are we going to transfer everybody? How are we going to keep accountability of everybody? What if we have to go further than this? Who do we contact? But that's pretty much the basis of that. Any questions? See, I told